Alrighty. We are live. How's everybody doing tonight? Just a second here. Let me get everything rigged so I can see everybody. Hey guys, welcome to the show tonight. This is your friend, the Counterdocs. Tonight we have an ecumenical gathering. So mostly we're doing this for converts, right? Or people who are new to the faith, discerning, whatever they want to do for themselves, whatever they want to pursue for themselves. There's this topic that that from depending on your perspective, right? They will tell you that it's two lungs of the same church. I've heard that before, and there are people who don't believe that Catholics, Orthodox are practicing the same faith. So tonight we have some friends here, right? We have Orthodox and we have Catholics, and you're not really going to hear a debate. You're going to hear civil conversations, right? We're just ordinary people. Okay, none of us, we're not clergy. Our opinion from our daily practice as laymen. Okay, do we believe we're practicing the same faith? Is any sort of reconciliation, or some people call it reunion, possible? So we're gonna break this into three sections tonight. So I'm gonna have all the guests here introduce themselves in a little bit, and we're gonna talk about how we see the world, because I think if Christianity is a hospital, right? It's here to solve. Christ is here. He's within us, among us, to solve the problems of the world. We need to have a correct understanding of what's going on in the world. So the first part, we're going to talk about that, and then we'll talk about, based on how our churches are going, where do we see each other in the future, and we're going to talk about the practicalities last. I will have the call-in links, but the call-in links is not going to be available until towards the end of the show. We'll do a few call-ins. As always, catechumen opinions don't count tonight. But if you're a catechumen of either church, you are welcome to call in or ask questions in the comment section. I'll try to scroll back and look at these things, okay? So let's do this. And I'm going to tag everybody's name here. When you see EO, it's Eastern Orthodox. Obviously, when you see RC, it's Roman Catholic, including Eastern Catholic. The Blue Catholic here, we have an interesting guest here. He's a Maronite Catholic. Everybody's welcome to share their opinions tonight. So with that said, let's get started with introducing ourselves. Catholic Defender, please tell us your faith, which is quite obvious. Why did you choose faith, and what are your thoughts on the other faith?
Sure, yeah. So obviously I'm Roman Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic, a revert. I fell away from the faith for a long time, and came back to the faith. For a while, I was just calling myself a follower of Christ, and then it was the Eucharist that really led me back to the Catholic Church. What was your other question? I'm sorry.
What are your thoughts on the other faith?
Yeah. I mean, I love my Orthodox brothers and sisters. I have a very close friend who's Orthodox. I've been to Orthodox liturgy. I've been to an Orthodox wedding. Jesus Christ is truly present in your Eucharist. This is sort of how I discuss it with other Catholics, other Orthodox. Your Eucharist is Jesus' body and blood. I will worship your Eucharist as Jesus' body and blood. So I believe we align pretty closely, I would say, like probably about 99%. There's just a few distinctions that divide us, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, man. Hammer of Heretics, go ahead.
Hey, so yeah, I'm Hammer of Heretics. Oh, I'm a convert from Protestantism to Roman Catholicism, or Latin Rite Catholicism, and I have a great affinity for the Eastern churches, for Orthodoxy, for the Eastern Rite of the Catholic Church. And yeah, no, I have a great love for it, and I personally like venerate like Saint Gregory Palamas. I love the mysticism and the closeness, the idea of the noose. All these different things are just very they speak to me. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
And why'd you choose the Roman Catholic faith?
So there was part of that was cultural for me. My grandparents had been Catholic, and my parents kind of skipped. So it skipped a generation, and then we kind of, I guess, reclaimed the birthright, right? But I did explore becoming Eastern Catholic for a little bit, and also even talk to an Orthodox priest. So who's to say where this journey ends? But I can't at this point say this is where I stand, right, with any certitude. But I know that I follow Christ. So as Protestant as that sounds.
All right, thanks, man. Actually, let's do Blue Catholic. Our Maronite friend. Is your mic working?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us. Obviously, we know you're Maronite Catholic. Why did you choose Maronite Catholicism, and what are your thoughts on the other side of the panel tonight?
So I'm a convert from evangelical Protestantism. I fell away from Christianity as a whole in like middle school, and I was like an agnostic atheist. I had like I believe I had a what we would call a road to Damascus moment where I encountered Jesus, and that drew me back to the church. I started investigating the apostolic faith because that's what I seen in the Acts of the Apostles and what St. Paul was describing in his letters to Timothy and Titus. I debated whether I should go to Eastern Orthodoxy or Catholicism, but I fell in love with the Aramaic spirituality and the Syriac spirituality that is in the Maronite Church, and that is what brought me to the Maronite Church. I have a great affinity for my Eastern brothers. I'm in the liturgical East like you all that are on the other half of the panel here. I hope that we can unite with my lifetime.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've never seen any sort of Aramaic liturgies. I do always want to see the Coptic liturgies. I've seen like some Vespers on the internet. What up, Solo Sayer? Yeah, I've never seen any. It'd be nice to when they witness that. Thanks for sharing. All right, Inquiring Truth, you're next, man.
Hey, yeah, I'm Inquiring Truth. I actually, wait, what was the question? Just introduce.
Yeah, well, tell us. Obviously, we know you're EO. Why'd you
Okay.
choose EO, and what are your thoughts on the other side?
Yeah. So
Be generous.
again, yeah. I grew up actually Catholic. My whole family's Latin. So over time, I guess I kind of went to this non-denominational phase. Then I started learning about the early church, and I realized how I started looking about kind of philosophy, how the people put together the Bible have to interpret it, and everything else would be kind of irrelevant. So what I looked, why is he laughing? Okay. And then what I kind of looked into it was, and then when it came down to Catholicism or Orthodoxy, and I kind of researched that road, and I came to my own interpretation that the Orthodox Church has the most consistent basis of reality, and how we interact with God, and it's always been passed down that way. And I see the papal position is kind of shifting, just in my view, of course. And but yeah, my whole family's Latin. A lot of them are Catholics. I have respect for Catholics as well.
Okay, great, thanks. So for me, those of you know me as the Counterdox, I was an atheist for many years, and I started looking at Christianity during college years because of the leftist push, and I wanted to push against that. But when I looked into evangelical Christianity, specifically like Charlie Kirkism and stuff, which is pretty much ran by the CIA and pushed by the elites, it didn't make sense, right? It does not provide enough logical grounding for the things that they argue for, which is, quote, traditionalism, which they still can't define today. Therefore, I did not further inquire into evangelical Christianity. I chose Orthodoxy. And I respect a lot of the practices in the traditional Latin communities. That's what I'll say about Roman Catholicism. With that said, we're done with the introduction. So I think, honestly, I think at this point, if anybody's really going to be mad at the end of this show, is going to be evangelicals. Everybody docked on them in the introduction, which is hilarious. So now we're going to move on to the first section of this conversation. Like we mentioned in the beginning, to effectively address the problem, we need to know what the problem is. So I'm going to start, and we're going to go around, and we'll talk about how do we interpret the world? Why is the world the way it is? And why can faith in how we know it, right, in our respective traditions, solve these problems? So I see that the current world as a distortion of normalcy, I guess. It is not the way that the world is meant to be. It is a corrupted version of the greater world that was created. And we are to follow closely behind the steps of Christ, to be obedient, and because Christ is true. He is the truth, right? He is the light. He is the truth. And it's only through communion with Christ and the healing of body and soul that we can, with hope, look for the resurrection and the perfecting of this fallen world. And that's pretty much my position. So with that said, Catholic Defender, you can go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead with what exactly?
Yeah, just tell us, why do you think the world? What do you think the world is? Why do you think the world is the way it is? And how do you think your faith is going to fix the world?
Sure. I mean, are we just talking about like the fallen nature of man, like due to sin?
Well, whatever in your opinion is the correct categorization.
Yeah. I mean, it really was the fallen nature of the world that led me to Christ. Seeing society how it is, how the 7 deadly sins are prevalent throughout our society, and which led me personally in despair, and then seeing Christ as the hope, as the light, to lead us out of that. I don't know exactly really what you mean with this question. My apologies.
I mean, how do you see your practice in Latin Catholicism? How do you see? I mean, what exactly do you think that your faith provides you to solve these problems?
I mean, abiding in Christ, so that I can be a light in the world, to help lead others to His church, to help to be able to love my brothers and sisters, to work with Him, to be His fellow worker. I mean, I think it's as simple as that.
Okay, like Hammer Heretics.
So this is going to be a pretty optimistic take, right? But I do think that the world and the created order in general is the greatest love story ever given to us. The way that I look at the world and creation as a whole is this was one selfless sharing of the perfect and immutable love shared in the divine community of the Trinity. God is perfectly transcendent, separate from the created order, yet simultaneously relatively immanent to it, right? So all of this was given to us, and while we ruptured that relationship with the fall, right, now living as post-lapsarian men, we now have the order of grace because God, throughout history, throughout the story of the Bible, throughout what we're living today, made these great and beautiful overtures to us to bring us back to Him, right? That's what religion is for. That's what the world is for. This is part of us rebinding ourselves to Him, religare, right, from the Latin for religion. right? So another thing is that the way that as a Catholic, as a Christian as a whole, I'm able to view the world with the fact that I have a telos, right? We all have a purpose, right? We were made for a specific end. We weren't made to be, meat sacks with nerves just firing off as random synapses. We're not just animals. We are higher order of creation. We are image bearers of God, right? We have reason, we have will, and we have the ability to create, which is unique across all of creation, right? So the atheistic dysteleological worldview, this nihilistic, hopeless kind of, worldview is totally foreign to everything that we know as humans, right? I guess one way you could put it is like we have a God-sized and shaped hole within all of us, right? And the only thing that brings us to that peace is Him. So that's kind of the way I view the world. Is it's without God, right? There is no world. The man in the mirror, right, is a key example. The created order is a reflection of Him standing there. The minute that He's not part of the mirror, He's not part of the glass, but if He steps away, the reflection ceases to be. So knowing that has given me a lot of comfort, and that's my worldview in a nutshell.
Okay, cool. What we just got this is good. Now we have 3 EOs and 3 Catholics. This is gonna be perfect. All right, the blue Catholic Maronite. Here's your turn.
So, I kind of have a little bit different view of the world because I served 2 combat tours in the Middle East. Y'all can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Making sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a bit of a connection issue where my, where the connection blipped. But I served 2 combat tours in the Middle East, and so I got to see some pretty nasty things, some of which I still have nightmares about today. But the world's a pretty terrible place with, from what I've seen, with all this violence, especially with the stuff that's going on now. You see in Iran, you see that in Gaza. I mean, you see that in other parts of Africa and other parts of Southeast Asia. But for me, I'm very hopeful because the church is growing. Both the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, they're growing at a rate that we have never seen before, and it's very and it's very inspiring that while the world is dark, the church is there as the light at the end of the tunnel, that we can keep moving forward. And I think by remaining faithful to the sacraments, we can draw more people to the love and the fullness that is in the Lord Jesus Christ.
When you say the church, what do you mean by that?
Hold on, Nicola. Just give us a second here. So the topic, I know you just joined. So basically, we're talking about we're going to do this in sections, right? Right now, we're talking about how do you see the world, and how do you think your church, your faith, actually solves these problems? So, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right, go ahead.
I mean, when you're saying blue Catholic, like when you're saying the church, people are moving to the
try
church.
not to engage the other person right now. Just don't engage the other person right now. Just talk about.
All right, yeah. I thought you were just gonna. So can you repeat the question again? Sorry, it's just 4 a.m. where I'm at.
Yeah. So your faith. How do you see the world through your faith? Right. Why is the world the way it is, and how does your faith solve the problem? And we'll do the discussion after.
I mean, as an Eastern Orthodox, of course, I think the world is the way it is because of the sinfulness of man and the abuse of free will, right? God made a perfectly ordered world, and we through abuse of our free will that is God-given in order to achieve communion with Him. We made sin happen. We make sin happen all the time, and we are the cause of suffering and everything evil in the world and everything. Basically, to put it simply, as my spiritual father did it, sin is not something in and of itself. It's a lack of the good that ought to be. Right? So sin isn't like a shadow, basically. It's not a thing in and of itself. It's always just the lack of virtue and the lack of communion. And if we have an understanding of that, and on a really deep level, and also see that within our souls, we can understand and see even on a subjective basis, right? Because in the end, we can base our epistemology and all the logic we want, but in the end, subjective experience is still going to be the thing that convinces us. We can all see in our subjective experiences that there is something wrong with us, and we need that kind of communion. We feel that need for communion. We see our own imperfections, if we're honest with ourselves. And the only thing that can account for perfection, which we can see we're lacking, is God. And if we do research into God, it is a triune God, is a Christian God, then of course becomes a question, which is the true Christian denomination? And for that, we have to go to historicity, the church fathers, et cetera, and like other philosophical things.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, and inspiring. There you go.
So the question was, how do we view the world? Like how to fix it? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, the faith, the world through your faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why the world is the way it is, and
Right.
how do you think your faith is going to fix it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously the world is the way it is because of sin and spiritual deception, etc. But and that attacks the flesh as well, because sin is a sickness physically as well. But so I think the way to fix it is obviously to see through divine revelation that Christ really revealed us how to interact with the world and how to treat other people and how to show the truth to other people. I think that's only consistent, obviously, in the Orthodox Church, because consistency is a barrier of what's true. Like, of course, other people can get things right, like how I would agree the Catholics would, but if it's not consistent, the paradigm breaks, in my view. So yeah, that's how I kind of view that.
Cool. All right, great. So we're done with this little section here, and now we're going to get more intense and more intense in this conversation. I promise you guys. Again, tonight it's not a debate. We're really talking about these core issues, and trust me, the issues itself are just intense enough for us to keep this going. Okay, so now we have described how we see the world, through our faith. We're going to move on to the next section. Okay. Based on where we see our churches and each other's churches going, right? Do we think we'll ever come to an agreement? Who wants to kick that off? Go ahead, Hammer.
So I would never say never. I would say that it would take an act of God for it to happen. It would really have to be done in that way. I can say that from the attempts at unity made by both churches, there's been overtures. There's been, there are uniates, right? People that have unified or come to, but it's not a perfect union or an equal reunion. I would say I noticed that on the Catholic side of the house with a lot of Eastern Catholics, they get treated kind of as like second-class citizens. Sometimes when they were told, hey, come back, you'll get to choose your own bishops, you'll be treated like this, you'll get to keep your unique right. A lot of times that has not been the case. They do not get to choose their own bishops. The Catholic or the Latinization of the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom and St. Mark and St. James has occurred. So there is a difference when you go to a Orthodox church and a Byzantine Catholic church, right? It's the same liturgy, but they've changed things. The confession is different as well. It's Latinized. So there's a bit of cross-pollination as well. So it's not a perfect retention, right? Likewise, on the Orthodox side with the Western Rite Orthodox, there's an Easternization, right? And they're also on both sides, Eastern and Eastern Catholics and Western or Latin Orthodox are treated pretty poorly. So that's one thing I would have to say is like, yeah, it would, to fulfill Christ's prayer, it would have to ultimately come from God causing that unity, not from power pushes or anything like that. So that's just my opinion.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, with the Latin Orthodox, the Western Orthodox, I think the core problems comes from for example, the teachings on the Sacred Heart, right, which was carried over and was cracked down by our bishops, but they insisted on keeping the name of the Sacred Heart, but just completely dismantling the meaning of Sacred Heart in Latin theology and just replace it with something that is Orthodox, right? Which is, I guess they're doing it because it's more friendly to people in the West. I don't know why. I don't agree with it. I just don't think it's genuine. I think you did make some great points there. So let's see. Catholic Defender, you want to go next on that one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're coming up on almost 1,000 years of schism. Less than 30 years away from that, and I think it's very possible in our lifetimes that we could see reunification of the church, or at least reunification of some or a majority of the patriarchs. But I guess we're not really talking yet about what's separating us, right? We're just
just where
okay.
Based on where you see the church, your church and my church is going, do you think it's a possibility realistically, and why? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, for a few reasons. One, I think we were very close, 600 years ago, Council of Florence, to reunifying, and now today, I mean, we had the mutual excommunications were lifted in the 1900s. Pope Francis, began, more dialogue with the patriarchs, and it's being continued with Leo now. I think it's very, very possible for us to reunify.
Okay. So interesting take there, definitely, because as many people know, the Greek Orthodox Church, the Greek jurisdiction, I don't want to include Mount Athos in this, but specifically with the Greek archdioceses that are strictly under the control of the ecumenical patriarch are extremely ecumenistic. They, constantly do push reunification with the Vatican and with many, especially sometimes even the Oriental Orthodox. And we do see that the Greek Archbishop Epiphoros of America inviting monophysites, Oriental Orthodox, into the altars of our churches. Not going to comment on whether I agree with that or not, but it is definitely a phenomenon. Okay, so let's do IT. Go ahead.
Yeah, my experience, I think that a reunion would, obviously as an Orthodox, we see how the Catholic Church has gone. It's went to more of a Franco-papal idea instead of just the word Catholic and what the early church represented of it. That's obviously our position. So, even with the the Vatican II stuff, the ecumenical ideology with their, and we obviously affirm that it comes from their theology from like Aquinas and stuff like that. So, I mean, we would obviously, my opinion, I think it would never happen, because to come in communion with the patriarch, meaning that the universal pope would never have to be in that patriarchal system. So it just wouldn't happen in our view. And another thing is that we have things already in that system, like for example, Bartholomew, or the EP, etc., doing things that are already like in communion with Catholics, and the rest of the church rejects those things. So it's like, it's kind of heavy proof that it will never happen in my view.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, Julian the Penitent says the newcomers on both sides are likely more rigorous than the forces that have been working ecumenically towards reunification. The theological issues, I mean, yeah, that is definitely true. Okay, so I'll give my opinion. Sorry, what was that?
Could I go next?
Oh yeah, go ahead. You can go next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, and I hope it's not going to happen in a true sense. I think there will be a superficial union, and we're building towards that with ecumenism and the new spiritism and the religion of the future. But that unity, if it ever does happen, it will be either only in name, or it will require the churches to stop what they are, right? Because there's such deep-running theological and dogmatic issues that you would have to completely ignore. So either you would have to give those up, which, I mean, of course, as Orthodox, we're open to that, right? For papists to give up the developments which they believe in, right? But if any Orthodox person were to suddenly start accepting papist dogmas, then they would stop being Orthodox in essence and become apostates. So there would not be a real joining of churches. It would be a joining of schismatics with the Roman Church. Other way around it's the same thing, although the papists are way more open to ecumenism. The thing is, I'm not too worried about that in one regard, because we can see, I mean, even with ecumenism happening, we can see, and this in the times before the Seventh Ecumenical Council, there was like 150-year period of giant apostasy in the church hierarchy in the East, right? There were iconoclasts, even the emperors and like most of the bishops, like 99% of the bishops. And then the faithful people and the monks, they actually made the Seventh Ecumenical Council happen, right? And made sure that the iconoclast and the Holy Spirit through them made sure iconoclasm wasn't a thing anymore. So I'm not too worried about that in that regard. Although when we come to look towards the end times and the times of Antichrist, of course, there will be the one world religion, and lukewarm Orthodox Christians will definitely fall for the worldly appeal of superficial love and unity, right? That idea of unity in the ecumenist sense can only happen on a superficial level, because true love and true unity requires truth. And the kind of ecumenist unity that people are talking about and suggesting requires us to throw all truth away, and requires us to just give up our own positions and focus merely on what superficially connects us.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Nicola, for your opinion. Blue Catholic, go ahead. Do you have something to say?
I do.
Oh, there you go. Now I can
Mine's
hear.
going to be, yeah. So like my view on this is going to be a little bit more nuanced than maybe. It's going to draw some, some sides. It's going to draw some sides from from my Western Catholic brothers, and then some from the East. I don't. I'm very hesitant to think that I'm hopeful that it'll happen, but realistically, I don't think that it'll happen in my lifetime, unless, like Hammer said, some act of God were to cause it to happen. Um, you know, I will admit, being a Maronite Catholic, we are the only Eastern, rite of Catholicism that never left, that never schismed, primarily because we were secluded in the mountains of Lebanon. We were surrounded by all the Muslims, so we didn't really know there was a schism until the Crusaders came in the 1090s. But hold on. Yes, like in my experience that I've seen, like there has been a lot of Latinization. The oldest Maronite manuscript of like liturgical manuscript is 500 years old because the Jesuits burned all of our stuff in the 1500s, which was not too good. But we are starting to see some intercommunion in war zones such as Syria and Lebanon, where no, what's the word? Oh yeah, where Antiochian Orthodox and Maronites are going to the same churches. They are receiving the same Eucharist, and that's being done as yes, it's being done as an extraordinary measure, but I can hope that it can become more permanent. But it's an extraordinary measure because the clergy there are saying that we're not going to stop the faithful from receiving the sacraments because there's like war with Hezbollah, the IDF, and then all the terrorist groups that we have in Syria. So I'm hopeful, but I have a very strong tinge of doubt that it'll happen within our lifetimes.
Thank you, Blue Catholic. So I like to appreciate 5 of you for being brutally honest about this topic, because this stream is meant to be educational for people to really see what's going on. They're dirt from both of our churches, and we're not afraid here tonight to, throw it out there. What Maronite said is absolutely correct, right? The Eastern Orthodox in Syria are communing, Oriental Orthodox, vice versa. And even in the United States, I personally know Greek clergy that communes Roman Catholics. and Oriental Orthodox, vice versa. Now, obviously, I'm the host. I have to give my opinion on the topic. I do believe that there will be ecumenistic communions from both sides joining in the future, may it be, near or far, right? Because we're not necessarily limiting this to our lifetime. But I don't think that is going to be recognized, and I think it will create certainly more schism within both faiths. With that said, we have a little bit of time for free discussion. Okay, on this topic of where our churches are going, if this is possible at all, right, and not necessarily just in our time. Hey, Veritas, these are invited guests here, so we're gonna have to work with us, and then towards the end, after we're done with the invited guests, we'll have people come in and ask questions. Okay.
I'd like to quickly add something to your position, right? I'm from Serbia, so
just Orthodox.
Yeah, quick little unique position, just like the Blue Catholic over here, right? There is lots, and I'm living in Germany. We have a hyper-ecumenist bishop here in Germany in the Serbian Archdiocese, so there is lots of ecumenism happening. Unfortunately, we can see that the bad kind of ecumenism. Of course, there's the good kind of ecumenism, right? Let's not get into that. But if you go to Serbia and tell people to kiss the hand of a Catholic priest, they will probably punch you, right? Because we remember what the Catholics did to us in World War II. We were, as a nation, right? The Catholic Church supported the Nazis, supported the genocide, supported the Ustaše regime heavily. We remember that they fucked us over in the Middle Ages. Remember they sacked Constantinople, our Greek brothers. We remember all of that. So if you're gonna come up to some Serbian villagers and tell them, well, you guys know we're gonna join the papacy now, they will fucking pull out their Kalashnikovs and like straight up.
You don't have Kalashnikovs. You have Zastavas, which is our. Wait, hey, I'm willing.
M75. Yeah,
no, I'm willing to debate you on this. Zastavas are garbage.
Zastavas are fucking.
I will debate you night and day on this topic. That thing should have never been created, and it's garbage. But we can debate that.
Yeah, no, I just thought I would add that because, like, yes, we see in the West a lot of ecumenist things happening, and it's mostly though for political reasons and for political pressure. Because I know, like, even though our bishop Grigori is like hyper ecumenist, I think. When he actually like talks in his sermons and stuff, he does not push ecumenism so much, although he outwardly is it, and it's required for the Orthodox Church. It was required, especially in the last 50 years or so, especially under communism, to survive in the West, because Orthodox churches bought up old Catholic, old Lutheran churches that were empty. Be that ROKOR, be that Serbian church in exile, we bought up those buildings, and that would have never happened if not for the good kind of ecumenism.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. And then, specifically with Pope Francis's canonization of Loisius, that makes it even harder for, specifically people of Serbian heritage, or even people like me. My priest told me a story the other day, because he's currently in Serbia right now. He's visiting his mother, who's in her 90s. So her mother was in one of the orphanages that were killed by Ustaše soldiers, and she was hiding in the closet at the time. And she prayed to God and crossed herself that I don't want to die here, and God granted her 90 years. But it's definitely a very real and gruesome.
Yeah, we have like so many saints. Like we have saints from the camps. We've got so many saints that suffered from the Catholics as well as from Muslims. So we like know both very well. And especially like even in the 90s, right? The Ustaše, with help of the Catholic Church, did a whole ass ethnic cleansing. Operation Storm, Operation Oluya, where almost 300,000 people were forcibly displaced, and like the Catholic priests from Croatia, they would take part in that with weapons and everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, I understand it's very emotional for you to talk about, especially you are, you are Serbian heritage. So I understand.
Yeah, I mean, you as people don't know that. So that's why I'm like just pointing that out. Like as a reality of life on the ground, it in certain parts of the world, this idea of like we can all just be one great big thing will never be a thing for many people in the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely history. That's one thing we should talk about tonight, because we have officially canonized saints who fought each other, right? My patron saint is Alexander Nevsky, and he has fought the Lithuanian Catholics, specifically the Crusader Army. And there's the case with Aloysius. All right, so I'm going to open this up for free discussion for the next 5 to 10 minutes. If we disagree on anything we've said, please be civil. Please don't debate. Have a civil discourse, okay, on what can we do to maybe potentially reconcile that, or if you disagree with something.
Yeah, I have a question for, I think Hammer, are you Latin or Eastern Catholic?
I'm a Latin Catholic, but I really, really like the Eastern Rite and Eastern expression of the faith.
Okay. What did you say about Palamas? Like, what do you view of him? I heard you say something about him.
So I personally venerate him. So actually, the counterdox, he's awesome. He made me a icon of St. Gregory Palamas, so I can put in my icon corner.
Okay.
So yeah, not this one. I have a bigger one in my bedroom.
I guess like another clarifying question is like, do you see it as a problem that he contradicts with Thomas Aquinas?
No, because we don't have a dogmatic hold on every single thing that Thomas Aquinas as a theologian wrote or said. So it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, for example, whenever they talk about, I don't know if you read some of the documents, but they name Aquinas as the doctor of the church, and everyone, should listen to not necessarily what he says, but his theology that Palamas directly, kind of contradicts, like essence energies, in our view, of course, the uncreated part without the created grace. Like, I just have a hard time understanding.
I need to interject, because right now we're talking about where churches are going. I mean, we got to stay on this topic.
But
okay.
if we circle back, I'll have an answer for you.
Yeah, we will, because we're going to talk about practicality right after this.
It's a good question. It's a great.
I was just curious, man. I didn't mean to go off the topic, but
all good.
But let me ask you guys a question though. Like, what do you guys think? So I'm assuming you guys are, there's no set of a contest in here or SSPX, right?
No.
No.
Okay. Cool. Okay, what do you guys think of these people?
Set of a contest?
Oh, that's a good question.
What do you think of? Because my understanding, because I've never been Catholic, right, is that a part of the disagreement they have with you guys is some of the ecumenist stuff from the papacy, right? And what do you got? What would you as canonical Catholics say to those critiques?
I mean, I mean, if we want to talk specifically about SSPX here, I mean, this is the most recent one, right? Like, why are they excommunicated? They excommunicated themselves recently for, consecrating bishops after being told not to. Like, yes, there's also like they have concerns with Vatican II, but like as Catholics, we're bound to accept Vatican II. So whenever I spoke with them, and they'd be like, "Well, I don't agree with Lumen Gentium 15 or Nostra Aetate 1 or whatever," it's like, who are you to disagree with things that we're bound to believe?
What would you
guys?
Sort of
my take on it.
So, would you say it's a fair statement to say the set of a contest are pretty much just a harder core version of the SSPX? Is that fair to like make that distinction there?
Can I ask one question in a sec?
Yeah.
I mean, is there, guys? You're all canonical Roman Catholics, right? You all accept Vatican I and II?
Yes.
Why should I be a Roman Catholic instead of Eastern Orthodox in light of Vatican I and II?
All right, that's a question.
The question.
So the question is, why were you? I think what he's trying to say is, do you guys see that there's a disconnect or a contradiction between Vatican I and Vatican II.
No, I'm thinking like, why should I, as an Orthodox person, become Roman Catholic in light of what Vatican II especially says about the Orthodox Church? Right, we hold valid sacraments and everything. We have the way to salvation in our church. Why should I ever become Roman Catholic instead of staying Eastern Orthodox?
Well, it says that it says invisible members of the visible church, right? So like our stance would be that you're not in the fullness of truth. So like if you become convicted that the Catholic Church is the true faith and you don't convert, then you're gonna be severed.
Okay, but if I stay convicted that Orthodoxy is true, I'm chill. I'm cool.
No, not necessarily. At least according to Vatican II and Vatican I, if you read them as they were intended.
Okay. So I guess this
Wait, I can
ahead.
take communion though at Catholic churches, right?
Yeah, and likewise, we can, in times of great urgency, we can ask an Orthodox priest to go and receive the Eucharist there.
I mean, yeah, you could do that according to the Catholic Church, but like not according to our church.
But there's still exceptions. There are, anecdotal cases
that does happen. I'm just saying there are cases.
That does happen. That does happen. Canonically, it shouldn't, but that does happen. That's
sure.
Like what canonically and practice, of course. But I'm just saying, right? So it also said, like, as far as I'm aware, our Eucharist, our baptism, everything, every sacrament in the Eastern Orthodox Church is valid according to Roman Catholic Church.
Correct.
Vatican, right?
Yeah, we would say valid but illicit. Yes.
So why should I become Roman Catholic over Eastern Orthodox again?
What
am I lacking?
Let me ask my Catholic guys, is that your positions? Like, do you guys tell Orthodox people to become Roman Catholics?
I don't tell them to become Roman Catholics because that would require them. That would require a lot of them to do like a canonical rite transfer. I would say they should continue in their liturgical tradition, right? Especially if you're Greek Orthodox, there are several Byzantine Catholic churches that you could potentially join. I wouldn't say you'd have to do a rite transfer. I don't know if we have any Serbian liturgical communities, but like I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would say they should stick to their liturgical tradition because that liturgical tradition is equally valid.
Okay.
Well, and a lot of bishops would actually, if someone was coming from Orthodoxy and was like, "Hey, I'd like to, join the Catholic Church," they would be directed to join a Eastern Catholic Church to avoid that. I would say that the main thing would be that when I've had these conversations with other Orthodox, I don't generally push. I'm not proselytizing to you guys. I do think there's a distinction to be drawn between ecumenism and indifferentism, right? Like just because we want to be one, we want to fulfill Christ's will in his prayer, doesn't mean that we should dive into it. Like you guys have mentioned already, right? It should not be a political or power-driven human effort. It should be a divine and human effort, a theanthropic effort, right? Like the church is a theanthropic institution. So it can't be just, we want to do it because we want to pull you in, right? Which we've seen, and I've mentioned already pretty explicitly. And likewise, there are areas which, and another thing I like besides the Eastern Rite is history. So, Nicholai, I can totally relate to you about what happened with, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Yugoslavia was atrocious, right? And these are wounds that Catholic involvement in these atrocities that have not yet healed, may not heal, right? So this is something that a lot of, like you said, a lot of Latin Catholics, there's an indifference strain in modern Catholic discourse. I'll be the first to say it, and it's very frustrating to see. I wouldn't call myself a rigorist, but I think I'm more pragmatic than some Catholics I've talked to.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, if I'm understanding you guys correctly, according to you, I would not be required to become Roman Catholic for salvation.
Like ordinarily, no. Well, for like an extraordinary way, you would be like able to be saved, right? In an extraordinary form, just like you guys have the extraordinary forms of salvation. Or
what's required for salvation in your guys' belief?
All right, Nicole, that's not. I'm sorry, but that's not like related to this current topic. You can bring that up during the practicality section, but right now we're just
Yeah,
talking about like
I-
church politics and stuff. Okay.
I have a question for Nicholai, actually.
Go ahead.
If your patriarch came back into communion with Rome, and you were, and he says you're now bound to believe these documents dogmatically, what would you do?
I mean, there has been apostate patriarchs like bound countless times. As Orthodox people, we are not bound to the authority of bishops and patriarchs as hardline as Roman Catholics. As I mentioned the example of the Seventh Ecumenical Council, where it was the laity and the monks that actually made that happen, that built a whole counter movement against the heretical bishopric, right? So in light of that, as Orthodox people, we are empowered because the body of the church is made of the believers. And as Orthodox people, we are empowered to take up responsibility and to fight for the Orthodox truth as it has been preserved by the Holy Fathers. In that case, I would definitely go against that. I would not join a schismatic church. I would start going to other canonical Orthodox churches, because at that point, the patriarch would be apostate according to Orthodox canon law.
Yeah. So
Now, let me just
can
I push that to the extreme and ask what if all of the patriarchs came back into communion with Rome? What would you do?
I mean, that's hypothetical. At that point, I would have to concede, because right, we say Christ has promised that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. So if that happened, then that would have been the case, right? Then the Orthodox Church could not have been the true church. If all the patriarchates and everybody in the Orthodox Church decides to join the papacy, then of course but that's a hypothetical. That's very unrealistic.
Of course, and if you're saying that you would follow, then like I would agree with you.
At that point, I would have to concede again.
Well.
At that point, I would have to concede. But
let me interject here. So I want to be clear to the audience, because the audience, tonight we have Roman Catholics, we have Eastern Orthodox, we have some other stuff and there's a few people that hate me, and they're always, yeah. So basically, how the Catholic Church structure is very different than how the Orthodox Church is structured. Normatively, even if a patriarch falls into apostasy, all the bishops that disagree with them can just go to the next jurisdiction, right? The patriarchy doesn't represent the entire jurisdiction, actually, right? He has his own little jurisdiction within. For example, I mean, a patriarch is pretty much, if you have established nation, and the whole nation, has a substantial amount of people who are Orthodox, then you get a patriarch. Like, for example, in America, the Serbian church here, we don't have autocephalous, so we're directly under Patriarch Porphyriot, right? So, but for example, God forbid, if Patriarch Porphyriot fell into some sort of heresy, we'll just go appeal to roll court, and that's not a problem in our canonical structure.
Even intra-jurisdictionally, for example, there's a monastery in Germany that decided, because of the heresies of Vladika Grigorie, that they were going to be directly under the patriarch. So they skipped that. They are not under the Archdiocese of Germany, and they are directly under the patriarchate, just because of that.
That I don't know. I mean, I'm not a canonist.
I know, because I go to that monastery quite a lot, and they're not schismatics or anything. They're like super chill.
Yeah, but that's just generally how that structure will play out. But I'm going to be dead honest to both sides, right? Regarding politics, and we'll end the politics section on this. So I'm going to just give each side the grace that a lot of people, the average Catholic grandma, when you go into a Catholic church, she's not going to know about Eustache. She's not going to know about, Aloysius, and she's not going to know about, what the Vatican did with the ex-Nazi officers, for example, helping them escape. And if you go to Orthodox Church, the Greek Church, the Greeks who are, being extra ecumenical at times, they also don't know what for example, what the Serbians suffered, right? So there nuance. I definitely think there are nuances in those topics, but I do believe those are contentions that pretty much at the current time is, makes it unable to be solved. And to end on this topic, we have already the biggest problem I see with where the church is going is that we have already canonized saints that have fought each other, that have perhaps killed each other, right? For example, the most without killing, it would be an iconic Orthodox saint would be Saint Mark of Ephesus, who led the resistance to the decision of of Florence. We have my patron Saint Alexander Nevsky that fought the Roman Catholics, and we have Aloysius, right? So those are pretty much things that we're not going to solve tonight. Our churches will not solve tomorrow, and I just believe that the audience should keep in mind when you take into consideration, because again, this stream is obviously we're all brutally honest here, and we want this to be of educational value. So we'll end this section here, and we'll go into the last spicy section of this talk here. Practicality. Okay. So hypothetical. If all of us come back in communion, if God allows it, this moment, can we reconcile our teachings? Okay. And do we really different that much in our practice of our faith that we cannot be reconciled? Who wants to start this one? So we're talking about if we are together, if we for somehow profess the same faith, is our practicality of the faith, right? For example, monasticism, prayer, maybe a little bit, talk about a little bit of your understanding of theosis or sanctification, however your communions wants to call it. Is that going to be in big conflict or no? Who wants to start this?
I mean, I can kind of ask a question, but like, don't we see some of that in Eastern Catholic rites? I mean, Blue Catholic, can you speak on that?
Yeah, I've never been to Eastern Catholic Church. I wouldn't know, but yeah, Blue Catholic, tell us about it.
So, like, whenever people say, oh yeah, the whenever we as Eastern Catholics would, are like told, okay, yeah, it's just the same faith, different expressions. And like, this is just from like what I've been talking from with the Maronite clergy in the United States. Like, we're starting to question whether in the Maronite teaching, if it actually is the same theology and ecclesiology that the Latins prescribe, right? The Latins say that the ordinary minister for confirmation is the bishop, but we still do it's the priest.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
Well, things like
entirely too
like someone earlier mentioned, like essence and energies. Like, is that being taught in Eastern Catholic churches?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Palimism is taught. Hesychasm is practiced. The only distinction that needs to be drawn when these I'm just going to use the term uniate, right? It's a historical term. It's used on the Latin side as well in historical writings. When the uniate churches reunite, they accept and assent to the teachings of the Vatican up to Vatican II, right? But they practice still the same. But again, like I said, over the course of time, Latinized practices have bled in. And so will I say that to answer the original question? Yes, the Latin Church has already started to do some of this, right? They've already started to integrate some of this. Now, whether there's actual equality, as I mentioned earlier, that's a whole different issue. And I know Nicholai had mentioned on the side chat that a lot of times the uniates are treated like second-class citizens because effectively they are. So I mean that's one thing I've noticed. Going to Eastern Catholic churches, because there's a plethora of them in the Diocese of Los Angeles. So,
Blue Catholics, you guys say the creed with or without the filioque? Because as far as I know, it's without, right?
In the Eastern churches, they do say it without the filioque. Yeah. So
I think he
in light
asked
of all
me.
that,
The Maronite Church does say it with the filioque.
Okay, let me ask all.
Byzantine does not. They don't
want
say
to ask all
filioque, but they
Catholics
believe it.
If, for example, if Pope Leo comes out tomorrow and says we're dropping filioque, would you guys have problems with that?
no.
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 Okay, that's fair. Okay, and
Do we?
anybody else?
Is it like?
Be-
Is everyone here aware of the Catholic Church's teaching on that and what we mean? Like, have you guys read Council of Florence on that?
Yeah, we know what it means. We know about the actual procession. You know, it's and please, people, before you go, debate filioque as a convert, understand what it's talking about. It's not just saying through the Son, right? Because you see this everywhere. It's talking about the Father and Son together being one. Being one cause. That caused the spirits, versus in the Orthodox belief, we believe the Father is the sole cause that sends the Spirit through the Son. And
right, and that's one thing that I think gets caught up too, is even Aquinas said that, right, the Spirit proceeds immediately from the Father and immediately through the Son, so he's not causal in the sense that he's not the prime cause of the Holy Spirit's spiration. But of course, that's, like I said, not everything that Thomas Aquinas said is dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree with that, and I've talked to one of the Orthodox priests that I've mentioned, and he's like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound like crazy, right? But I do agree, like, from the Cappadocian perspective, right, it does flatten the Trinity out a little bit, which is it's a fair gripe.
Okay, so with that said, anybody have anything they want to discuss on?
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, it was about someone brought up the essence energies. It was about something I was asking Hammer Heretics earlier. Can I go ahead and go on with what I was asking Counterdox or no?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess, like, if you know that the filioque and the doctrine of the essence energies are a complete, a creedal doctrinal thing, not just about theology alone. I guess, like, the thing I just don't understand is, like, as a Latin, like, are you aware that Palamas calls you guys, like, of Satan?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and the reality is that saints on both sides of the house err in their personal theologies. They say things that they shouldn't. I mean, Thomas Aquinas himself, a doctor of the church, has made what would be considered theological error now. So, I mean, that's, I mean, look at Thomas or St. Augustine as well, who was also a doctor.
What's your standard for assessing that error? Just for clearance.
Wait, what was that?
Just for clarity, what's your standard for assessing the error of these saints?
So it's based on when you look at what the church teaches, right? Like with Augustine, right? We don't believe in viper in the diaper theology on either side, whether we're Orthodox or Catholic, right? And he did teach that, for instance, right?
Yes, but when you say what the church teaches, do you appeal to ecumenical councils or papal infallible statements?
Ecumenical councils and statements of the Pope, which they don't disagree with one another from our perspective.
So what happens when they do disagree, though?
Well, that's a theoretical, hypothetical situation.
Bro,
so
hold on, Nicholai, hold on, because I'm trying to get this. I get what you're saying, but like, because you said it was, but you said it's when they have a saint, but Palamas isn't even a saint in your church.
He is. He actually is a saint in the
venerated by the Eastern Catholics.
Yeah,
Biscaths say he's a saint.
I'm aware, but as a Latin, they have a distinction of sainthood.
Yeah, so they would consider him more as like a local cultus. He's not like part of the universal martyrology of the Latin Catholic Church, because the reality is that even in this unity, and that's another thing that hasn't been brought up yet, is that really the Catholic Church is a amalgamation of 23 distinct churches, right? It's different churches, right? Sui juris, self-governing churches that come back. So they did, when they reunited, they each brought their own the Eastern equivalent of a martyrology, which I know there's a term for it in Greek, but I don't have it off the top of my head right now. But when they come back, they do bring them. They negotiated for this, right? Because it did become a negotiating thing. It's like, hey, can we bring this saint? Can we do this? And even during Great Lent, they still have the Sunday of Saint Gregory Palamas, right? So
Right.
that's still part of it. And
Well-
like I said, hesychasm and palimism is actively practiced in Ruthenian
Right.
and Melkite churches.
I guess what I'm asking, I'm not really asking. I know you guys believe that, but I'm saying, how would that not be a contradicting, knowing that theology is creedal and not just eternal procession, like say the filioque way, or a paradigm of theology? If those things were denounced and called heresies, before the ecumenist type of ideology.
So if we're talking strictly about palimism, palimism's never been declared a heresy, right, by the Catholic Church. So it's not heretical to practice it. So that if we're just talking strictly about palimism, right, or hesychasm.
Well,
it's
I'm
not
talking
been
about
made
the idea of the Eastern theology as a whole. Like, are you aware what happened at the Council of Florence with Mark?
Yes, I'm aware of Mark of Ephesus, and he's also considered a saint in these churches.
Eastern, right? So I'm saying,
Yeah.
I know you guys believe these things. I'm saying, why does that not contradict?
Because again, it's a local cultus rather than a universal saint.
And wait, what does that
right?
mean, real quick? I keep hearing you say.
So for instance, there are some saints that are practiced or celebrated on a local level that's not
Okay.
practiced in all of the 23 different churches in the Catholic Church, right? That's there's a universality to it, but not every saint is venerated universally, right? Like Saint Alexander Petizvet, right? Like in the more Russian leaning churches, like the Ukrainian church, he is venerated, but he's not venerated universally, right? Like Augustine is a universal saint, right? Like he's venerated on both sides.
Hammer,
to give you an example.
Let me try to clarify this for everybody listening. Would you say that, like, it's more similar to like a private type of veneration?
That's correct. Yeah. So that's what I mean by a local cult, right? Like a small group somewhere locally that would be celebrating someone as a saint, but it wouldn't be a universally celebrated saint. Like Saint Valentine, right? Used to be on the universal martyrology on the calendar for our liturgical calendar. He's been removed, but he's still a saint and he's still practiced, right? He's still venerated. You can venerate him. You can ask for his intercession. Did that kind of clear it up? Am I getting to your
I'm
question?
confused on what does make a saint then in the Catholic Church.
So
is it just people venerating the saint?
It's part of that is veneration. Part of it is the investigations the church does, right? With like Saint Carlos Acutis, who was recently beatified by the church. They want to make sure that, like, when they intercede for them, they're actually, there are miracles attributable and verifiable, that sort of thing. If we're talking like saints, before like for instance, like Emperor Saint Constantine the Great, right? He was an informal canonization, right? There was no formal canonization process for him. There are a lot of saints that were informally canonized like that. Who else? Like saints,
do saints not have to adhere to the teaching of the and dogma of the Catholic Church to be saints?
So let me try to end this for you guys, right? So the question for the Catholic friends here is that does the Catholic Church allow this sort of nuance? Is it acceptable in the Catholic Church that this sort of nuance with private veneration of people like Palamas and maybe
private veneration is acceptable.
Yeah, you can privately venerate like your relatives if you have a reasonable belief that they're in heaven. You can pray, ask for their intercession. I mean, that's not like, I don't know if that's the case on
they just draw a line. They draw a line at public veneration. So like you can't have a liturgy that includes someone who wasn't canonized.
So the Catholics, they publicly do celebrate, for example, Gregory Palamas, who is not formally canonized by the Roman Catholic Church. So that just contradicts what you just said.
No, because it's not. Again, these are different churches. Sui Juris church is. So in that church, they do venerate the Palamas, right? And that's acceptable. But in the Latin Rite Church, he would not be venerated. So that's why it's a private
but then
veneration.
You're saying it's not the same church. Then you're saying you don't believe in one holy apostolic
I just said that
church.
It is one church with multiple churches united to it. So
that believes different things.
I think here's the thing. Here we're here tonight to represent our positions faithfully, and I think the Catholics done that. And I think the Orthodox done that. Yeah. So regarding that topic, what I believe that the Catholic friends are saying is that their churches allows, in specific cases such as uniates, right, to carry their own traditional baggage in a way.
And universal, not uniform, right? I mean, it's like oikonomia and akriva, right? There's strictness and there's economy with these things, and that's part of that unification process. Likewise, the different Orthodox churches, it's still one church, despite the fact that they're disparate and there's different cultural practices. That doesn't take away from the oneness from the Catholic or Orthodox perspective. I think that's one thing I should
I think we're
emphasize.
the dog meat.
Sure,
Wait,
sure.
Orthodox,
So-
real quick. How many more topics are there? Because I gotta go pretty soon.
We don't have much more. So yeah, that's fine. The top again, this is an educational video, more of an educational video. We have the positions here. We'll have the audience listen to it and go from there, right? Because we can't make people believe what we want to believe. We can represent our positions faithfully. So I want to talk about prayer because it's very important to Christian life. I think a lot of people have questions on this. So rosary versus Jesus prayer. What are your thoughts on it, guys?
I think both are acceptable.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Like I'm Latin, right? I can go get a prayer rope if I want. If it's totally acceptable.
Mm-hmm. So, me personally, the host here, I pray the version of the rosary that was composed by Saint Seraphim of Sirach, which is pretty much just a repetition of Hail Marys, right? But the issue is going to arise, specifically we're talking about practicality, right? Is it practical for somebody who prays the rosary in the way that the Roman Catholics does? For example, the imagination part of, about the imagination, which is, not allowed in Orthodox hesychasm and Orthodox spirituality. And I know the Latin Catholics, they accept, again, I'm assuming you guys accept hesychasm. Okay, do we see conflicts there, guys?
So what I'll just say this is that I do totally understand the worry about prelest and logismoi, right? Like spiritual delusion and evil thoughts. We have a contemplative leaning practice that's somewhat similar to hesychasm called the Exercises of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, who was a mystic on the Catholic side post. He's a counter-Reformation saint. And likewise with hesychasm, it should be practiced with a spiritual director. You shouldn't be doing it alone because you could easily fall into that. Likewise with rosaries, praying the rosary, it should not be. You can do it alone, but like there's a certain point where you need to be discerning and make sure that you're not going to fall into some crazy stuff, right? I think that's part of any sort of meditative or contemplative prayer. But that's just my perspective.
Can I have an Eastern Orthodox here respond to that? Just a response, not a question.
We can see that this idea of allowing images leads to some pretty crazy and wacky stuff. I mean, there's canonized Catholic saints having these visions of like Jesus naked and like the holy foreskin and whatever things. I'm not, my memory isn't really fresh on that stuff. I read about that a couple of years back. But in light of that, in contrast to the Orthodox type of prayer, which is like the hesychastic type of prayer, I mean, I'm way too inexperienced in prayer to actually talk about deep hesychasm. So I would never allow myself to give any sort of dogmatic perspective on that, because I think you need to be like very deep in a spiritual life for that. And I'm not that deep in it, unfortunately. But yeah, I think there's conflict there. Because no images versus images. And if we see, I mean, just for myself, if I see images produce such insane things, I mean, to me, insane things such as like Jesus' holy foreskin being kissed by in visions by female Catholic canonized saints, that kind of eliminates that as a healthy option for me, in my personal opinion. That's okay. Super subjective, though, of course.
I want a Catholic to respond to that. Go ahead, Maronite.
So am I responding to the original question or what?
Or whatever
Nicholas said. So I'm a prayer rope guy. I do the Jesus prayer. I've tried having, like a devotion to the rosary, but I've just never, I was never able to like keep it up past, maybe a week every time that I've tried, because for me, it just doesn't make sense with the theology, Christology, and ecclesiology that we teach here in the Maronite Church. The prayer rope and the Jesus prayer just seems, it just makes more sense coming from, coming from the Syriac fathers, or especially from, from the harp of the Holy Spirit. Yeah, for me, I greatly respect those Latin brothers that have an affinity for that devotion to the Blessed Mother through the Rosary. But me, I can never.
Understand. Okay.
I don't think I could ever get behind it.
Lastly, we have to talk about this a little bit, is statues and icons.
Just one quick correction before we go on. It wasn't a female saint that kissed the foreskin. It was Saint Catherine of Siena, and she had visions repeatedly where Christ was marrying her as her bride, and he gave his holy foreskin to her as a wedding ring. That was it. Sorry, I misrepresented before.
And I did want to take a chance to respond to that, because I will say that there are many mystics on both sides that have had visions or said things that are kind of off the wall. That's kind of goes along with being a mystic. Those visions, those ecstasies and experiences are not dogmatic. They're private. So that even though they share it and they write it in their writings, that's not part of their canonization process. For instance, you have, Saint Simeon, the new theologian, who said that Christ was, in his penis, right? Does that mean that Orthodox theology is therefore to be thrown out because of one saint saying something like that? No. I don't
think there's an issue with that statement, because Christ is everywhere and even there. So that's context based. But saying that Christ is giving me his foreskin as a wedding ring and I'm his eternal bride, that's a little bit different, in my opinion. But I think we can leave it at that and move on to the next question. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Again, we'll have the audience decide on. So icons and statues, right? Catholics, question for you guys. When you guys venerate a statue or an icon, right? Mostly statue in my understanding. Or some Catholics, I don't see, they actually don't venerate anything, right? What do you believe is happening at that moment when you venerate the statue?
Most of the time, whenever and this is purely what I'm doing whenever I'm venerating an icon. Yes, like whenever I'm venerating an icon or a statue, I'm asking for, if it's a saint, I'm asking for the intercession of that saint, right? And that's primarily what I'm doing. I'm asking for their intercession for whatever is on my mind at the time. If that makes sense.
Sure. And I want my Latin friends one of you guys to share, because I know he's Eastern technically, so I do want to hear from the Latin perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's, statue or icon, it's sort of the same thing, where it's like a window to heaven, right? So when we're venerating, we're venerating the person that it represents, and asking for their intercession. For me, it doesn't make a difference, right? I have icons here next to me, but there's statues within my church as well.
Right. And I would say that, in terms of iconography, we ourselves are iconography, right? The Bible itself is an icon. So statuary being iconography is not, that crazy. Even in Eusebius's church histories, right? He wrote about, statuary where Jesus had healed the hemorrhagic woman. That's not a problem. And so for me, like veneration, whether it be before a statue or kissing an icon, it's still an intimate spiritual experience with those that are part of the cloud of witnesses, right? We are part of the one body, the one loaf, right? And so that's that barriers being part of the one body of Christ, is that we can talk and commune and share in this love that we've been given. So
all right, Eastern Orthodox, real quick, because we do got to wrap this up, the formal section. Do we disagree with that or no?
As far as my catechism goes, icons are more than just a representation of the person being venerated. They also always include theological truths and are a way to teach theology, which is something that you can't really do that well with statues. For example, if you look at if you analyze icons and iconography, there's literally meaning in everything, from the colors of the garments of the people depicted to the color of the sky. Like, everything has very deep, very theological meaning. So it's also always a theological tool that is also used for veneration, in contrast to just being an object of veneration. And I think there's a contrast there. I don't think the way that you guys just explained it, I don't think there's an issue with that, respectfully. But I think it's just lacking in depth.
Yeah, even things like the thickness of Christ's neck. Like, his neck is always thicker than the apostles, to signify that he's divine.
Yeah, so everybody here agrees that paintings are better than sculptures, right?
Yes.
Correct.
All right. So before we call,
there's a lot.
Go ahead.
Work that comes into making those. A lot of prayer that comes into making those.
But anyways, what I was saying was, with statues, I think the thing is that, like Nicholai said, everything's there for a purpose. You know, the way that Christ is a certain way. You know, I think that there's a liturgical reason on why icons are there, because the iconography on the scripture. I mean, for example, this icon, it's very straightforward. It's there for a reason. So for a statue, it's something in the Orthodox Church. I don't think how they describe it, something wrong, but consistently over time, again, it's just something we call prelest.
All right, cool. All right, so that we're gonna try to start to wrap up the formal section of the night before we allow call-ins. So we're gonna go around one last time, because IT has to go. He's on the East Coast. It's already 11 o'clock for him. All right, 11:30 almost. So
I have to go too. It's 5:20 a.m.
Oh, damn.
Good morning, guys.
All right, so let's do this. We're gonna go around. Okay. The last question I want you all to answer is this reunification, if you want to call it that, possible before the end of all times? And why? Give a realistic answer and supporting, and make it doesn't have to be long. So, Catholic Defender, you're up.
Sure. I mean, there's disagreements on certain things like filioque, leaven, stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing is the papacy, right? Papal supremacy. So I think it's always come down to authority. I think that's really what caused the schism to begin with. So I think that's where this whole thing will end. But yes, I do think it's possible to reunite in that sense, because those other things are just people are going to hate me for saying this, but I think that they're just minor to authority. We have leaven in our Eastern churches, right? We don't have leaven in our Western churches. The filioque, when we talk about Florence, like I'm pretty sure that all but one bishop had agreed on it at that point. Like when it came to the way that it was discussed then. So as I said, I think it all comes down to authority.
Okay, thank you. Hammer Heretics.
So like I mentioned early on, I think it is possible. I mean, I'll pull from a biblical example, right? Yeah, with the first century Jews, right? The Sanhedrin was comprised of the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who had extreme theological differences with the way that they viewed the canon, the way that they viewed the eschaton, all these different things, and yet they were still able to be unified because it was God's will for them to even be together. That's why I'm saying that ultimately this hinges on God and whether or not he does will for that unity to be in that way, because the reality is on both sides, we know that there can be one church, one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. So there's a mutual exclusivity to that. Whether or not we'll find out, I think that will be at the end, the eschaton itself. But you know, yeah, I'm hoping it's happening. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but it's going to be in God's timing.
Thank you, Nicholai.
So again, nominally, yes. In essence, no. Meaning that there will definitely have the one world religion that will happen will include that. I mean, before the end times, right before the end times, will include a nominal joining of the churches, but an essential joining of the churches where like the actual dogmatic differences are worked out and where one position is accepted as the absolute truth or some compromise is made in the middle that both parties accept. That won't happen. It will be something akin to the Biscaths, where there's like a bunch of theological contradictions that these smaller churches within the papacy hold to. So again, that's for me, that's not a true unity. That is nominal unity. It's just like nominal love without real truth to back it up and without any sort of deeper dogmatic epistemology for the existence of said unity.
Okay.
So I think yes, in a worldly sense, yes. In a true and theological and spiritual sense, no.
Blue Catholic.
I'm hopeful that it'll happen for the. Yeah. Excuse me. I got something caught in my throat, but I'm hopeful that it'll happen within, within my lifetime. I don't think it'll be happening within my lifetime. I'm hopeful that it'll happen before the end times. Am I very skeptical about it? Yes, I am. But the Lord's, not our will, but His will be done. Let the Lord's will be done. If it is the Lord's will that we will be united, then we'll be united by the grace of God.
Thank you. IT, and then you're free to go.
Yeah, I think again it comes down to because Christ is eternal and so is His church. Even if there's a physical church on earth, as an Orthodox, I'm obviously going to reject the idea that we're going to reconnect on an ecumenical basis. And just to use my examples like Florence or the Acacian Schism, obviously the motivations are not one church. So I cannot agree with one church's decision that is not communion with Jerusalem. So no, I don't.
All right. Thank you guys for your answers. So again, before IT leaves, I want to tell all my guests that this footage, everything that you're involved with on my channel is free to take. I will not copyright any of these things. All right. And also, again, this is meant to be educational, right? We want people, especially new converts, to listen to this and hear, what is it like to think of each other in practice, right? And we're all laymen, right? None of us are theologians or anything. Some of us here would consider ourselves apologists. Some, just laymen with very rigorous mindsets. But I appreciate all of you for your contributions tonight, and I hope that this will be helpful to people who are inquiring into both faiths to see, what it really is like. And thanks, IT, for coming. And Blue Calf, I know it's very late. You guys feel free to go, but I would like one of the Catholics to stay here with me to answer questions from whoever will call in a second. But before we do that, I have to say that unfortunately, the ordinary Kalashnikov design is certainly better than the Serbian Zastava. And the chat has made that very clear. Your gun is a disgrace to the legacy of Kalashnikov. It is ridiculously heavy and impossible to find replacement parts. So yes, the ordinary Kalashnikov is a better gun. I'm sorry. You can debate me later, but that is
it's fine, bro. It's fine. No, I actually, thanks for having me on, guys. Forgive me, please, if I was like too confrontative. I've got that personality trait. I'm working on that. Thank you for enduring me and my inner movements. Thanks for having me. Enjoy your day. I don't know what time it is where y'all at, so either have a great liturgy today or tomorrow. God bless you all. Keep me in your prayers. Good night.
God bless you, man. Thank you.
God bless you,
God bless,
brother.
brother.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm gonna head out also, but I mean I might join back because I do have to do some things. I might join back a little later, but appreciate you having me on.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care, brother. God
All right.
bless.
And Blue Calf, if you have to go, that's totally understandable. We're only going to stay.
I'll be here. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be here until we cut off.
Cool. So I'm going to open it up for call-ins. only one guest at a time, and you get to talk to any one of us. I'm the only Eastern Orthodox left. You get to talk to any of us for around 3 to 5 minutes, uninterrupted, right? And when you come in here, state your position and who you like to talk to, and you have free engagement. And there it is. Here's the StreamYard, and we'll give it a few seconds. And
Hey, Counterdogs.
what's up, dude?
I used to have a Mosin Nagant M44 carbine.
Damn. Dude, these are like a one that will shoot nowadays is like $700. It's crazy.
I got mine for $90 at Big Five, dude. What? Oh, this was back when I was like, it must have been like 2011. I was like just coming out of high school, so I'm dating myself.
Yeah. So I got a high school 2018, and that was already messed up.
Yeah. They're harder to find, but they used to be so cheap, so darn cheap.
Okay. All right, we got 2 guys in the chat. So, Orthoseal, I assume that you are Orthodox, right?
Yes.
All right, please keep it questions only. And
Okay.
who would you like to talk to?
Is this just? I don't know. I guess anyone. But is this to answer like the question of the title, or is this just to kind of ask a question?
Ask a question. You can ask a question.
Okay. Bro, it's very late here, so my mind is kind of cooked. Is that someone else waiting, or is it just me?
No, there's someone else waiting, but I'll give you a few minutes to ask our guest.
Oh, you could maybe get them first, and then I can like because I need to like gather everything.
All right, cool. Get off the stage. All right, cool. So we'll have Daniel come. What up, Daniel?
Hey, how's it going? Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to him forever. Dude, good to see you, brother. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I was listening to the conversation. It was really cool. I really enjoyed this. And plus, I've been to a Western Rite recently. So the question I had for really either one of you guys is, for energy essence distinction, do you hold to like a formal or a real distinction? I'm an Eastern Orthodox myself. I just want to ask the question.
I would say, what do you mean, formal or real? I mean, we don't really use that language. It is a real distinction, I would say.
Yeah, I know. Like that's like the classic answer would just be like, well, it's a real distinction. But like, formal means, from my reading of it, and I'm trying to understand the Western Aristotelian terminology more, because St. Maximus the Confessor did a little bit with that, because he talked about Gnostic, gnomic will and all that. So a formal distinction means that they can't be they can't exist without the other. So it seems to me that in beinghood itself, you need both essence and energy, and you can't have one without the other. So that's a formal distinction, right?
Yes, you could say that.
I was gonna say, because from the Catholic side, at least from my perspective, I do think that there was a problem with applying Aristotelian reading to Palamas's writing, which created a lot of confusion because he doesn't mean his terms in a scholastic sense. You know, even reading the triads, like, you know, he's even said, like, in a palamistic sense, the energeia in here in the ousia, right? So they are not like real in a scholastic sense, like as separate, you know, like in a sense uncreated entities, right? Which is how a lot of people have mischaracterized the essence energy distinction on the Western side. So that's my 2 bits on that.
Okay, any more questions, Daniel?
The other one, I guess, would just be about the Western Rite, I guess. So I went to a Western Rite, and it was St. Gregory's Mass. Is that like fairly similar to what the Latins do? Because I didn't know how similar that was.
It's pretty much just the Tridentine Mass in English.
Exactly that. With and the only thing they add is the prayer, a couple of the prayers from St. John Chrysostom's liturgy, and they remove the filioque from the creed.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was shorter, you know, like I preferred the Eastern Rite way better, but it was really cool just to experience it, you know.
Yeah, I go to Western Rite on Ash Wednesday nights all the time. So it's pretty cool to see it, but it's not personally. I would say it's not my case because I was catechized in the Eastern Rites. I don't really relate to it. I do have a problem with them using organs. I don't think that should be done in that context. But otherwise, the bishop says it's orthodox.
Well, and we talked about this when I had you on my show, Counterdocs, but I did a little more research. The reason why the Western Church used organs as opposed to the Eastern Church is because one was gifted to Charlemagne. Or Pippin. It was Pippin that was gifted until he started using it in the rite. Even though, like I said, historically organs were used in the circuses for the games, and they were considered like a kind of a crude thing, but of high technology because organs, they take a lot of effort to make them work and build them.
Yeah, there's it is the case. I mean, in both faiths we see this actually. Like, I mean, we don't obviously use organ, but like you see the Russian churches, they started weeding out chanting and replacing it with like polyharmony from the West, and that's also due to imperial preference, right? Royal preference, and that was a part of what actually, during the Nicolaitanian reform that sparked, schism with the old believers, right? It happens. You have anything else, Daniel, before I let Orthoseal have the field?
That's all I got. But yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Great to see you. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, take care. All right, Orthoseal, are you ready?
Kind of. I'm still. I have very. It's very difficult to manage my thoughts, but I think so. It's just something. One of the things I was going to say. I also have a opinion about the title, but I don't know if that's for this. It's mainly for asking questions, like about Orthodox and Catholic reunion. But I guess. Okay, I'm trying to speedrun gathering my thoughts. So, like, in ecumenical councils, I believe for an ecumenical council to be valid, it must not contradict previous ecumenical councils. And one of my biggest issues with the Catholic Church is that many of the councils do contradict previous councils, and it's not just about saints of quotes of saints, but stuff like for example, I believe Council of Florence says that essentially everyone outside the Catholic Church goes to hell, and it seems very. I mean, reading it really seems like there's no exceptions to this rule, and there are many other quotes. This whole idea of maybe they can be in the church. This is not actually. This is not really seen. I've so far not seen a quote in a council after the Great Schism, but before Vatican II, that says maybe man they can go to heaven. It really just seems like you're cooked if you're not Catholic, and maybe like some kind of, if you have no clue about Catholicism, maybe you can, but it and then Vatican II, if some people say it's not as like ecumenist, but it at least says that like some people may go to heaven, but that's like the least worrying thing. And then if it's like as bad as some people say, it's like, yeah, Hinduism can lead to heaven, which I don't think it says, but it says at least like non-Catholics may be able to go to heaven or can, which I think contradicts previous councils.
Okay, any Catholics want to answer that question?
If that didn't make sense, I have some disorders, so it sometimes my speech doesn't make sense. I hope that makes sense.
So, like, were these differences that you were talking about differences in pastoral disciplines, or like, are you seeing like differences in, or are you seeing like differences in theology?
Do you consider ecumenical councils to be infallible?
Well, that's an interesting question right there, because we do have people on Catholic side like Voice of Reason who says ecumenical council's error, because he does believe, there's some
Sure.
apologists on the Catholic side that would say actually the ecumenical council, specifically Ephesus, contradicted.
Well,
Made an error.
any so-called Catholic saint, I mean, I don't personally believe they are, but any person venerated in the Catholicism before Vatican II would say the opposite. And I don't know. This seems like a very modernist view, and I understand. You can like say like, actually everyone was wrong, but like no one held to this view before Vatican II. That like you know what I mean. I don't know. You can say that, but it's a really new view, and I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
So is your question about changes, about like differences between the councils, or just about the Second Vatican Council?
I believe that
Because
when I read the Orthodox councils, none of them I mean, some of them, like, if you're not that educated, may seem to. Like, some Orientals may say, Ephesus is contradictory. And then I've heard some Church of these people say that Ephesus was a Jewish council. And then there's people in Orientals who say Chalcedon. But if you actually read it for what it is, it doesn't seem to contradict. And then some other ones, like post-schism councils, like I believe over two, they don't contradict previous councils. But I guess there are other things, but I have a really big difficulty managing my thoughts, so I wouldn't be able to cover. But this is one thing I can kind of remember. I wrote this down like in the 5 minutes. Is like simply the before the Vatican II, the Catholic Church really did seem to say all people outside the Catholic Church go to hell. Maybe there was an exception to like some like Ugo Bugo tribesperson in the middle of like a forest who doesn't know anything about Catholicism. But I don't know. All the writings I see, it's like, I don't remember. It's like Council of Florence. It's like, if you're not Catholic, you're cooked. That's what it seems. And then Vatican II is like, hey man, you can be Hindu, man, and it's all right, man. It's all right. You can be Hindu, and like the people like Mother Teresa seem to kind of prove this claim that this is like Mother Teresa was like this, like, you can be Hindu, man, and you'll be saved. It's okay. Well, I guess saints are not infallible, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's kind of a straw man of what Vatican II is.
Counts, yes, but at least that might know. Even if it's not saying, I personally don't think Vatican II said like Hindus can like follow God, but it does at least say that there is a chance for salvation, which contradicts previous councils. I mean, the Orthodox position has always been the Orthodox Church is the only normative way to salvation, but God can save whoever He wants to. This hasn't really changed, but the Catholic position post schism has always been non only Catholics can go to heaven, and then it changed during Vatican II. Even though I don't think it was as big as a lot of people say, it was a change in doctrine, which to me it doesn't. I don't believe in, like, I don't think, and even there are popes who say that like some things. Sorry, my thoughts are cooked.
So let me like try
to. I'm ready to respond.
Hey, Orthoseal. So let's give him a chance to respond. So CD, go ahead and respond to whatever he said.
Yeah, I mean, we still hold to no salvation outside of the church, right? That didn't change. It was just a development of doctrine on what that means.
Yes, I understand, but it seems to me, and what I've read into it, that it was a. I mean, what do you mean by developing a doctrine? Because this seems more like a change in doctrine. Because before Vatican II, it was if you're not Catholic, you're going to hell. Like, it doesn't say you probably will. It says you will go to eternal fire. And then Vatican II is like
it's like how Hammer described it earlier about ordinary means of salvation and extraordinary means of salvation.
Yeah, but this idea didn't really exist. This idea didn't really exist, and now that like this whole idea, like for example, the Orthodox. I mean, now that the Catholics recognize our sacraments and what you need to be saved, well, you need in Catholicism, you need confession and the sacraments. But like, I don't know about this one, but I assume this also wasn't taught by people who believed we were going to hell.
Orthoseal. Yeah, so I think let me summarize what Orthoseal is going to say. I appreciate you, bro. I'm not trying to be mean, but we got to move on. All right. I'll make sure your point is made here. So I think what Orthoseal is saying is that I think he understands that the Catholics accept the idea of doctrinal development. However, what would you guys do if this quote doctrinal development ends up contradicting itself?
Yes.
So I would ask, are we talking about pastoral doctrine, or are we talking about theological doctrine? Because pastoral
Dogmatic,
doctrine,
anything that is, I think he's saying anything that is dogmatic.
Oh, that's different.
okay, so it can't. Anything that's dogmatic can't contradict another dogma. The Holy Spirit will prevent that from happening. So that's a straw man. It's like, okay,
So the ecumenical
then
councils
what
aren't
if this
dogmatic.
happened?
To augment on this, we all on Eastern Orthodox and Catholic sides, we both agree that not every canon of every council is dogmatic. There's of course going to be flowery language that's involved, and then also there's a matter of jurisdictional language, right? So the church has temporal jurisdiction to say, like, if you're excommunicated, right, you've been anathematized, they can, they'll in the bell booking candle, right, they'll mention like, oh, you're going to hell. But the reality is that the church does not have the jurisdiction to say you are going to hell, right? That's ultimately God's judgment, right? We're not on the bema when we do that. Like the Orthodox Church, when they excommunicate people, is not making a judgment on their eternal salvation, because that's outside of the realm of the church. Remember, it's a multi-dimensional thing. It's a theanthropic thing. But it's not for the church to say you are going to hell. It's God's decision and judgment for that, right? Which is why we ultimately don't know, which is why we're able to say like there's invincible ignorance, right? Because we don't know the fate of everyone. We can say positively for the saints because we've been shown miracles and, have evidence that we study, over the course of time and through what they've done. But the church is not dogmatically defined who's in hell, right? I don't think the Orthodox Church has said, oh, Judas is definitely in hell, right? We can extrapolate, but there's no dogmatic definition for who is in hell. And even though this statement was in Florence, that's not a dogmatic statement that every Orthodox is going to hell or has been in hell, right? So that's just where I'm seeing this.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Orthoseal. Call back another time. Okay, anybody else wants to call in before, I'm going to start answering some questions. Let me just repost a link one more time, and then I got to let my guest go. So, question: ask Orthodox allow divorce and marry up to? I don't think anybody in the history has gone anywhere near that. So it's not 4 times, actually 3 times. It is in the case of extreme, like, no. By the way, no one has done that. Just letting you guys know, no one has done it in the history of the church. So the reason why it's allowed 3 times, I don't know why 3 times specifically. It's tolerated in certain cases. Divorce is tolerated in certain cases because, for example, abuse, right? If the man is abusing the woman, and just like it's also tolerated in the Catholic Church, men's abusive to the woman, beating her, abusing her, then the man has violated his vow to the sacred sacrament of marriage, because you are to tolerate your wife, love your wife like how you would, how Christ loved his church. So the man has violated that, and he has shown that he is not repentant, right? He's not going to honor the sacred relationship of marriage, so he needs to be dealt with. So that is a case. And also in cases of adultery, right? I actually know somebody, it's a friend of mine. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible situation. His priest told him not to, but he was engaged with a girl when he was an inquirer. And the priest told him to call off the wedding until 1, you're baptized, 2, she's baptized, or at least show interest in Orthodoxy. This woman shows zero interest in Orthodoxy, and he ignored his priest's advice. And did a wedding ceremony as a catechumen, not in the church, but in his own way, because it was planned. He was too lazy to cancel it. What ended up happening is, which is disgusting, right? 6 months later, after the marriage, when a month after he baptized Orthodox Christian, he caught his wife cheating on him naked in his truck, that the same truck that he provides for his family. So, now she is Orthodox. Glory to the Lord, she has repented. But it is a nasty situation, right? So in that case, if somebody commits adultery, right, and they're not repentant, it's just like Judah. Judah committed adultery against Christ. He has chosen the path of damnation. So that's another case that both churches will allow divorce in a way. Remarriage is also almost impossible to be granted. I think it will be easier if the spouse dies in the Catholic Church to grant a remarriage. And the Orthodox Church is that you have one spouse. Once your spouse passes away, or if you're divorced, well, it's different. Once your spouse passes away, we believe that relationship continues, right? But not in the, obviously not in the earthly way, but in a more fulfilling way. You are to be faithful to your wife, to pray for her, and to be celibate. That's our stance. It's almost, again, impossible to grant remarriage after death of the spouse. And in the case of adultery and divorce, it is, if they ever do grant it, is because of extraordinary situations, and the ceremony is it's actually more like a small compline. It's more of a repenting ceremony instead of an actual matrimony. So that's what I'll answer regarding that. And maybe some Catholic friends can tell me, one of you guys can tell me how it works in your churches, because I like to hear that.
So like there really isn't a divorce in the Catholic Church. There is an annulment, but an annulment is just saying that there never was a marriage in the first place. So it's essentially saying, hey, yeah, we have found out that there never actually was a valid marriage in the first place. So we're just going to say, we're going to officially declare that, yeah, these two people are not married because they never were.
Okay.
I mean, you can
Is that
look at it
just
as
the
a
Maronites,
divorce.
sorry, is that the
That's-
Maronites, or is the Roman Latin rite the same?
Latin also, yes.
It's effectively the same. Yeah, an annulment, which they would say, oh, you were never married at all. Yet they do grant the children, like if there were any children, they're not considered bastards, right? They're considered like legitimized children. They do allow remarriage, but it's a difficult process. And it accords with what we should be one flesh with whoever we marry, and even what Christ said about marriage, right? It's like, oh well, if someone had 7 wives, right? Are they married in heaven? No, right? So yeah, that's.
Hey Nicholai, how's it going?
What's up? How you doing? Is there too much background noise?
No, you're fine. I like to listen
Okay.
to the Koreans kill themselves.
No,
They're always yelling. So, those of you who don't know about Asians, they always sound like they're ready to murder.
my parents said that when they came to visit Korea, they're like, "Why is everyone yelling at each other?" It's like, no, that's just how they speak.
Yeah, what's up? What's on your mind, man?
Not much, and just hopping in to say hello and see what's going on with you.
Yeah, so basically we just did an educational conversation for converts. We sat down, talk about pretty much everything that we believed about each other, and realistically, if quote this reunion, because people say this in both communions, right, is practical, is sort of possible in any sort of way. So what are your thoughts on that?
I've talked about this before on my channel, and I've always said this, that while this sentiment is very nice and it could happen on a micro scale, like for example, maybe one or two bishops decide to, leave Rome to come to Orthodoxy, or vice versa, right? The hard reality is that there's too much drift that has happened over the centuries. And the biggest sticking issue, in my opinion, is not even liturgics. It's not theology even. It's not that we couldn't come down and how do we properly want to understand the filioque? Like all of that stuff is like, okay, sure, yeah, we can maybe come to another council and work out our differences. The problem is they're saints, right? We have saints that say about their saints that they are damnable heretics, and they have saints that we simply can't accept because of what they say about our saints, and vice versa. And then also there's just some saints that have very problematic histories within Rome, and it's just from a practical standpoint, you're going to convince the average layperson who might have a very close attachment to some of these saints to abandon their veneration. That's the same problem that the Orientals have with us. Like the Orientals are way closer to us in a lot of ways, but even if we were to somehow accept, even if they were to accept Chalcedon and all the other councils that have since happened, even if they were to say, yes, we're going to do that, there's a huge plethora of saints that they've had that simply we could not accept their veneration. I think that's the hard reality.
Yeah.
And it goes vice versa, by the way.
Do you think it's impossible for all of the saints from both churches to be accepted?
There are certain theological positions that certain saints held that we have condemned as anathema. And for us to accept them would immediately discount our anathemas wholesale. So that's a big problem for a lot of Orthodox. You might have a couple more ecumenist-minded bishops in the Orthodox tradition who would be like, oh, we can ignore that, or we can overlook it, or we can find, like, we can create a new subcategory of saint that is like honored but not blessed, or something like that. And I just don't think it's feasible. I mean, modern Rome, they might do that. I mean, look at what the Uniates do with like Gregory Palamas, and Saint Gregory Palamas said some very choice words about the bishop, the Pope of Rome, right? The
So Nicholai, let me ask you
choice words. So.
If I'm forcing you to do
up?
this, right? If you, let's say, for example, if you're the king of the Orthodox Church, everything you say goes. If I'm forcing you to accept, who's one saint that you say you can't accept from Roman Catholics? Give me one iconic one.
Some of their medieval histrionic saints.
So let's say Catherine.
Some of the female saints there.
So, for example, Catherine of Siena. If you try your best to make this person work as a saint in the Orthodox Church, what will you do?
If I had to, I would basically say she was in spiritual delusion because she was captured by the spirit of foolishness, so maybe a fool for Christ at best.
Okay.
And that would be like pushing it like majorly for me.
All right, so Catholics, let me ask you guys this. My patron saint, Alexander Nevsky, who fought the Catholics, who spit on the decree of the Catholic bishops. If I want you guys to, imagine you're the Pope, I want you guys to make this person work in the Catholic Church. What would you guys do?
I don't know enough about him to be able to respond, to be honest with you.
So he's the Prince of Novgorod of Russia, and then he fought against the Catholic Crusaders, and he denied to become Catholic. And he largely, he was canonized in our church because of that. So if I ask you guys, okay, we're gonna come back in communion, you guys are gonna have to find a way to canonize Alexander Nevsky. How would you guys do it if I force you to do it?
I don't think it would be that big of a deal. I mean, we don't agree with forced conversions in general. So if it was at sword point and they're trying to make him convert, that's not a valid conversion method. So yeah.
And does Nicholai, you have any disagreements with guys, or do you guys have any disagreements with Nicholai?
Actually, believe it or not, your average Roman Catholic probably agrees with me more than some of the guys that I've been beefing with recently, which are like the Latinizers who try and push PSA in the Roman Catholic Church and PSA
Dude,
Yes, I know your eyes.
That's so spicy. What the heck?
Do you guys know
Yeah.
Eric Ibarra?
Eric
yeah,
Ibarra.
yeah, I've heard
He's
of
been
Eric Ibarra.
pushing. He has an entire
Yeah.
book now pushing
Well-
penal substitutionary atonement, saying that it's a perfectly Catholic position. I'm like, guys, the Catholics hold to like a form of satisfaction. I don't know the nitty gritty details of your guys' atonement theology, but it's definitely not PSA.
Not PSA. Is this kind
No,
of like
it's not
that whole
PSA.
like undercurrent with like the big talking head Catholic apologists where they're trying to repair Nestorius's reputation?
Yeah, and there's that too, right?
You haven't heard of that, Nicholai? You know about that?
I've heard a little
It's
bit
so
about
crazy.
it. But listen, I have a good relationship with a lot of Roman Catholic guys. Like, even though I disagree and we can have a hearty back and forth, the problem I have is actually with the Roman Catholics that spit on the face of their own church's tradition. Right? Like for me, that's actually more egregious, because I think that there's actually more like, I think the modern Roman Catholic Church has made a lot of like steps forward for reconciliation, even though I think it's inconsistent with their position. At least they're making those overtures, right? And I think that there's other problems that come with that, but I can respect the effort. With these other guys, they want to essentially LARP as if they're basically creating their own like mini like factionalism within the Roman Catholic Church by saying, hey, we believe in PSA. The Anglicans are doing this as well, by the way. There's a whole subsect of Anglicans that are saying, oh, we believe this. I'm like, Anglicans don't believe in PSA. Are you out of your mind? The traditional position of Anglicanism is another form of a vicarious satisfaction, which is similar to the Lutherans.
Yep.
The Lutherans hold to vicarious satisfaction. Those are not the same things. But there's this there's a significant, I wouldn't say significant, but there's a group of people in the Orthodox sphere that are trying to do this to us as well. So for me, actually, the biggest problem that's facing the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox Church is also that you have groups like that are actually undercutting the ability for us to have true ecumenical dialogue, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to flatten the differences. And when you flatten the differences, you can't actually work them out. And instead, what you do is you cause both churches to twist what they actually are, and then meaningful dialogue can't happen.
I think like with these people like Miko and
the furry
Capybara, these people are actually not doing it for that reason, right? So we look at Capybara. What he's trying to do is he's just trying to subvert the Orthodox Church. That's what he's trying to do. He's just doing it as a jab to the Orthodox Church. He has no responsibility. He's not actually trying to reconcile anything with Protestants. If you look at Miko, on the other hand, he's living sinfully by self-pleasuring to furry porn. Literally, by the way, literally. And he believes maybe the penal substitution thing.
He does. He believes in inherited guilt and penal substitutionary atonement.
Maybe
and inherited guilt in the specific Protestant Calvinist sense. Because I've asked him. Have you guys watched Craig Truglia's video on atonement, the economic atonement? It's an excellent video where he breaks down the differences and shows like basically he has a scale. I mean, midway through he shows a scale of like, this is where the Roman Catholics are, this is where this person is, this is where this person, this is where we Orthodox are, right? And he kind of breaks down the differences and stuff like that. They people like him have come out and said there's no difference between Anselm, PSA, Thomism, and all that. Like they essentially just want to flatten all these things as a spectrum. That's what Sig, if you guys are familiar with Sig has come out and said, oh, PSA is a spectrum. So it just is a spectrum of beliefs. I'm like, this sounds like LGBTQ nonsense. Like,
oh, they are. They literally are. I mean,
well, they're claiming no. By the way, like Sig came out the day after all that blew up, and he did a live stream saying, "Of course, I don't support gay stuff." Then why did you have an entire stream? And even if this is my argument, let's grant him maximal charity and say he was just mistaken. He worded it badly, and he was actually steel manning the argument, like they were trying to say. Then he's really, really bad at explaining the faith, and a person who's been baptized 1 year, 2025 Paschas when he was baptized. 1 year he's been baptized, and he's going around teaching people. That is unacceptable.
Yikes.
Listen, I didn't even make a channel on my YouTube until I was in my 5th year, going into my 6th year. I'm going to be baptized now into the Orthodox Church. I think I'm coming into my 6th year now. I'll be into my 7th year in less than a month.
Yeah,
That's very different than some. And also, I was catechized for 3 years, so I like total 9 years almost of being consistent in my Orthodox journey and faith. Meanwhile, you got people like this, like yeah. But anyway, I don't want to get bogged down. But yeah, for the Roman Catholic bros, like a lot of it. I have a lot of sympathy because I know a lot of them are very faithful people who want to see their faith work, and I know a lot of them want to see reunion. So I try to be as nice about it as possible, even though I'm going to give back as much spice as I'm given. So
Fair.
you know, so
Fair.
That's fair.
So Hammer of Heretics.
Yeah.
You I think I've heard that before. Are you have you done like a debate?
I've done a couple. Some formal ones and some informal ones with Protestants.
Yeah.
So I did a Sola Scriptura debate, and then I did another one on
against two. Sola Scriptura against two.
He's like a very small channel.
Okay.
And then the other one I did was on Marlon's channel, and that was Sola Scriptura, and then the other one was Transubstantiation. So just
Transubstantiation. Okay. Yeah. See, Sola Scriptura is actually one of those funny things that I debated Sola Scriptura back in the day. Do you guys remember Pedro from The Crucible?
No.
He used to be the co-host of The Crucible.
I've seen The Crucible.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I know who he is.
He used to be the co-host of The Crucible, and me and him had two different debates, one on the canon of Scripture, and I can't remember what the other one was now. And my favorite argument, because it's a little bit trolly and tongue-in-cheek, but it's kind of serious at the same time, is my favorite one, and tell me what you think about it, is like a single blind person makes Sola Scriptura impossible.
Yeah. Yeah,
correct.
That's a good one.
Because a blind person can't hold the Sola Scriptura because they have to trust that the people who are explicating the scriptures to them are doing so correctly.
I mean, that guy's a liar. I debated him too on. I mean, he said that he holds to real presence, which is not true because he says the London Baptist Confession teaches that. I looked it up after the debate. It's not there. It literally says it's not. It says it's not.
It's a memorialist.
Yeah,
they hold to a memorialist position. Anybody who's I grew up in Calvinism. I used to be a Calvinist. I don't know if you guys are converts yourself, but I used to be Calvinist.
Converts.
Yeah, but I'm lying and disingenuous.
I'm a revert.
People.
But Nicholai, the one I used in my Sola Scriptura debate was particularly against the perspicuity scripture was the classic, I never said she stole my money. And I was like, do you know what this sentence means? And and then I showed him that, hey, there's 7 different meanings to this one sentence. So how can you say that the scripture is perfectly
perspicuous?
Yeah, exactly.
I have another one. If you guys can use that, you can use this because I got this from an entomologist buddy of mine. He's a language guy, and he's in the field of entomology, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, in the English language alone, let's say there is something that is vital to the witness of Christ's resurrection. Just imagine this. Let's imagine that there's a story where it's very important to know the exact location of the apostle who met Christ at that exact moment. And let's say it's vital that they get this right because it is an attestation of his resurrection, right? Now, let's say it says Jesus was on the first floor of this building and he met the Apostle John. And that's very important to the story. Let's just imagine that be the case. If I go to you or Counterdocs or somebody else and say, hey, he was on the first floor, you all will immediately, you're all American, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're American, the first floor is synonymous with the ground floor. If someone says ground floor or first floor, they mean the same thing, right? Like they're kind of, you can use either one depending on your mood or where you're from, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're in the UK or Australia, if you say the first floor is the floor after the ground floor.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if so, that immediately shows that two people could read this hypothetical passage and come to radically different opinions just on first floor. And that's not even a definition problem. That's just simply a cultural, contextual problem. So immediately perspicuity is out the window, because how am I supposed to know which one the people at the time would have interpreted that as? The English scholar is going to say, well, it's the first floor. It's obviously means it's the second floor. And the American scholars would be like, no, the first floor is the ground floor, right? So like, it's little things like that. If something as simple as like what floor you're on can get confused in modern English, if two people can speak and get confused in modern English, imagine layers of translation, layers of cultural context, and everything else. So like any Protestant that's arguing for perspicuity of scripture is like out of their minds. Out of their minds.
What,
Right.
Hammer, can you repeat the
Yeah, go
can
ahead.
you repeat the example that you had given?
Oh, I never
the
said she
7?
stole my money, because it has 7 different meanings depending on how you emphasize those words. The other thing is that Greek has a lot more nuance than English, and there's different words for words. So that's why when you can, and this is a fun little wordplay. It's like, who is the word of God being referred to in 1 John 1:1-14, or John 1:1-14, right? So they'll look at that in English and say word is flat, so that must be in the Bible. But the reality is that there's 3 different words for word in Greek depending on who you're talking. In the Johannine context, logo tutheon, or the word of God, is Christ. So that's another thing that, like, etymologically speaking, they're trying to apply a language that's more limited to one that has more nuance. And like you mentioned, besides the fact that it's just like first century context and all this other cultural stuff that's involved, and you're trying to essentially apply presentism to historical text.
Catholics, my Catholic friends, this species right here is our. Just so if you guys never seen it before, this is our version of the sedevacantist.
The TOs.
So hey, Anti-Surgeonist Battalion USA, you are welcome to call in.
That's
You're
spicy.
welcome to call in. So
Spicy.
there's that. Yeah, I usually just ask them, like, where's sola scriptura in scriptura?
Is that kind of like Brother Nathaniel, like where it's like one of those like?
Oh no! Actually, Brother Nathaniel was canonical, and then he was actually kicked out because he refused to submit to the bishops because they were captured by Jews or something like that.
He did. So look, I had like a personal. I really this is gonna sound so spicy, but I used to really like Brother Nathaniel's like videos.
I did too.
But they started getting more unhinged, like when he was like, they're doing like a pelvic sexual ritual at the Wailing Wall, and like he said that during one of his shorts. And I was
he started out, when he first started out, he was really well liked by the Metropolitan at the time of Rocor, precisely because he was very focused on arguing against and arguing for converting Jews. Now it's just blind Jew hatred, which again, I understand, critiquing Jewish power, all that stuff, I get it. But when you've sidelined your original purpose for doing content, which is to bring people to Christ, and instead you've gone into geopolitics, especially as someone who is supposed to be a monastic, a entry-level novice monastic, you're off the deep end.
Yeah,
right?
you can't be doing stuff like that as a novice. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So ultimately, Rocor said he cannot participate in that stuff anymore, and he needs to basically do a penance in order to come back into a right relationship with his bishop. Blah 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 blah. And he basically said Rocor's captured by the Jews.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not the first time a priest or member of the clergy has done something like that. We have Arius. We have many examples of correction being rebuffed. So I mean, I still do. Besides the anti-Semitism stuff, I do enjoy his older stuff. So it's still fun.
I don't actually mind like a little bit of spice. Like listen, get it? Like
part of the internet.
Elbowing a group of people a little bit and me going, you're a little, I don't mind that. But my goodness.
What do you guys
my goodness
on here?
That's so awesome. Oh my god.
Who's it of? I can't read that. Saint. It's backwards, so
Saint Gregory Palamas.
Gregory Palamas.
Gregory.
Yeah.
So
love that guy.
Excellent.
Nicholai, take a guess who wrote this one?
That was you.
You.
Oh, okay. No. I was guessing because you were painting
I'm
the other day.
nowhere as good as this, but take a guess who did this.
Was that Please tell me it's not like one of those like Hindu sects that keep on doing our icons and stuff like that.
It's
No,
not
it's
monastery
not.
icons, right?
No,
Yeah.
it's
Jonathan Peugeot?
It's a really goofy guy on YouTube.
Hmm.
Is that Brother Nathaniel?
No, he's not capable of doing this. There's
Uh,
another really goofy person that does this very, very well, and he's pretty famous for doing it. But he's just way too goofy.
Goofy. Shane, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, I'll read it. It's from Dormishinsky.
Oh
I don't know who
no.
that is. Is he?
They're like there's some
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if
schismatics.
this is a problem with
this-
my stuff, but I can only hear you, Counterdocs. I can't hear any of the others.
Oh, okay.
I can hear him.
I can hear everybody. I heard
You might have to quit and rejoin.
Yeah, but that's so his name is Archbishop Gregory, and he basically thinks he's the only Orthodox bishop left in the world.
That's a
He has-
lonely place to
he has
be.
a little-
That's
Yeah, he has this little base over there in Colorado, and
Oh my
dude,
God.
he's an incredible iconographer. And I
Well,
had
one
him
thing
do this.
I will say. The reason I can't take the TOs seriously at all is they deny the sanctity and the sainthood of several modern saints of ours, like Saint Luke the Surgeon, Saint Paisios, Saint Porphyrios, like very modern recent saints. They're just like, no, these guys were delusional heretics, and it's like at that point when you're it's kind of like when you're denying the obvious sanctity of one of our saints. It's like I just don't have any patience for that. It's like, okay, like no argument they give is going to really land on my ears. They deny the sanctity of my patron saint, Saint Tsar Nicholas II, right?
TO?
TOs, yes. They
Russian
reject,
TO?
yes.
That's weird.
TOs are, dude, they've gone more and more radical as time gone. Maybe not in Russia itself, in Russia proper, but the American TOs that are like a spin-off of the Russians, they do.
Yeah,
But
dude, I had him
also,
call in
a majority of
2 weeks
the old believers are starting to convert back into the canonical church anyways also. And
Yeah,
so it's like,
after the Russian church apologized.
once Rollcore in Moscow, Rollcore in Moscow healed their division, and they had the reunion back in, I think it was 2009, might be 2007, but after that, that's when they thank you for the belated names day.
Oh, it is yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday.
100,000, over 100,000 Russians were out on the streets doing a procession for Saint Tsar Nicholas II.
So this is this is who I privately venerate. This is Archpriest Avacum of the Old Believers. But this was not the priest. I mean, so he was the initial one that led the resistance against the Greekizing of the Russian liturgy, and he was burned by Tsarists. So I just gotta keep him on my icon corner. But I'm really hoping that schism gets healed.
I think it will. I think it's only a matter of time. There's less and less arguments they have for maintaining that. I feel bad for the RCs. The SSPX stuff must have been a rough. That was a rough thing that just happened there.
So what are the canonical traditional Catholics that are left out there? Do you guys know?
Well, we still have like the FSSP. We have the ICKXP or something like that. We have a
It's
few.
a bunch of letters.
Yeah.
You also, I mean, in theory, like all of the guys that I know that are super active. Like I just watched. What's that one guy that he has the deep voice and he's always like talking with Orientals?
Was that Voice of Reason?
Voice of Reason.
Voice of Reason.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, dude. Yeah.
So he came back recently, and his first video, like officially back, even though he's been back for a while, his first video coming back, he makes some of the worst arguments I've ever seen against orthodoxy. He's like,
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
listen,
Good arguments. So
Yeah, dude. Look, if you saw his debate between him and Ubi, that was really bad argumentation. Like,
Yeah.
really
listen,
bad argumentation.
Ubi is like people. You can take issue with what Ubi said, and I think you can be good faith and challenge those views. But Voice of Reason did not give good responses to
No,
that at
and
all.
if Ubi didn't
No.
crash out, which I mean, to be fair, like if I was experiencing that kind of fallacious crap in a debate, I would have a very difficult time restraining myself too. But I think if Ubi didn't crash out, he would have like won single-handedly. I mean, basically did win. When you're getting to the point where you're making appeals to numbers in an argument about who's wrong, and who's right, you've already like you've lost the plot, dude. It was
Dude,
bad.
yeah, listen. I'm a simple guy.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. My argument for argument with Roman Catholics is never the history. I never want to get bogged down in the history, and this frustrates some Roman Catholics, and maybe it'll frustrate you guys a bit too. But I'm a pragmatic guy. For me, I want to look at the current reality of both churches and say, okay, which one is best reflecting consistency, continuity, right?
Voice of Reason.
You have a very plump booty.
I mean, I think
The Council of Ephesus never said I couldn't text a girl with very plump booty.
I was cleaning up my folder yesterday because I was one of the first guys who received the text messages. I just had to delete it. It's just too goofy to save on my computer.
Listen, if somebody sent me that, I'm like, what are you doing? I can't have this. I'm a married man.
I think somebody definitely set him up.
If someone said that they would grease me up, I'd be like, dude, my wife wouldn't appreciate that.
my wife would like, of course, the day I get those, my wife would look at my phone and be like, what the hell? she's like, Joey, do I need to know something?
Yeah, if someone said that they would grease, I would say, okay, prepare to do so at the end of a rifle barrel.
But ladies,
or something
what
like
are we
that.
doing? Ladies, what are we doing? Like, why are you like? If any dude ever comes to you and says, "I'm gonna grease your very plump booty," and you're 18, what are you doing?
Also, his whole Council of Ephesus thing was really bad too, where he's like, "Oh yeah, the Council of Ephesus." It didn't. Nestorius isn't a heretic. That's part of that thread of like people trying to like rehabilitate Nestorius. He never reconciled with the church. He died outside the church.
Yeah,
I don't know how people can say that.
Well, and he tried to use in his most recent video, he tried to use Saint Isaac the Assyrian, which, by the way, you guys venerate as well. Yes. He says, well, they were out of communion. He was out of communion. It's like, actually, there was back and forth communion. The bishop before Saint Isaac the Assyrian was back in communion with two other jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was after Saint Isaac the Assyrian's death that it was kind of solidified that they were divided. So, you know, sometimes that stuff is messy. This is why even the Orthodox will recognize that the Roman Catholics there were still huge swaths of the Western Church after the Great Schism for several centuries that were still producing saintly people, like especially in the more far-flung areas. That's what be our position, right? Especially like in like England, where there was a lot less oversight and things like that of the Pope. Now, obviously, you guys might disagree with that, but I'm just saying, like, there is a rationale for both sides on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just a bad argument.
Too. He's a really good saint. He's a really good.
I don't know. I mean, he's in VOR is in direct disobedience to his bishop. He's advised to stay the hell out of the internet space, but he's not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe his bishop has come out and said it's okay for him, but he's never clarified that and said, I've talked to my bishop and he said I'm good now, right?
Well, he was already skirting it by appearing in other people's YouTube channels and doing his own thing still. So
immediately, like within 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, and he's still on a Patreon where he's financially, you know, benefiting from this even still. I mean, there's a lot of issues that I see with that. I'm not gonna, you know, have any.
Yeah, but it's like, listen, we all make mistakes, right?
Sure.
We're all people, but it's like, if you're going to openly represent a faith group, you should have a pretty good example yourself.
Yeah.
And I think the Roman Catholic community absolutely responded to that appropriately.
Yeah.
And it's respectable what you guys did.
It's created scandal. I mean, even now it's creating scandal. So that can't be ignored. You know?
And I mean, he's going to be he is going to be ignored by any serious people besides from the Coptics.
Well, that's because the Coptics are all right. I'm gonna get. I got excoriated a couple years back when the Coptics were like being very ecumenical, and they were like saying, "Oh, we have the 21 Coptic martyrs," and then there's some Eastern Orthodox people saying, "Oh, we venerate the Coptic martyrs too." I'm like, no, we don't. Like, listen, yes, we can pray for them, but they have not been recognized as martyrs in our church because they didn't die for the Orthodox faith, in our opinion. And
Right.
and I was excoriated for that. I'm like, guys, this is basic ecclesiology 101. This is how the Roman Catholics do it. This is how the Orientals do it too. The Orientals just don't venerate anyone who dies outside of their canonical boundaries, right? There's a process. So it's like,
and then their priests were going nuts, like especially this priest that's pretty close to me. It's in Huntington Beach. I'm not going to name who it is. Started to slander us, and he said that Orthodox content creator, he's talking about Jay Dyer, right? Said we're disrespecting the martyrs. I was like, well, first of all, no, that's not what happened. If you watch Jay's whole stream, he never made a comment on, quote, the martyrdom. He just said the video looked off because it's the ISIS guys will look like a freaking giant, and then these Coptic dudes are looking like kids. I was like, all he said was, I think this camera footage is a little bit altered. That's pretty much what he said. And the Coptic world went nuts over that. So, he's disrespecting our martyrs. Oh my God. I mean, like,
it was horrible. And I'm just like, listen, guys, like the Coptics, I mean, after the last debate that they did with Kai and David Erhan, I was like their best debaters.
When did they debate David? When did they debate Kai?
It wasn't Kai. It was David Erhan.
Erhan.
Kai was the one that set it up.
I want Kai to do it.
Dave.
No, I really want Kai to do it.
Yeah, Kai said that he's done. He's like, after the David Erhan, he's like, we're not debating you guys anymore. You don't get to come up with your new 17-year-old who is the new best thing since Swiss cheese. This is it. Get your best guy. And if that's the best you can get, we're not doing this debate anymore. We're done. We're not going over Saint Cyril of Alexandria or Saint Cyril again for the 100th time, where we're going to break down the nitty gritty of these things. Like we're done.
I mean, but honestly, like for everybody here, like truthfully,
guys,
like
getting a bit late for me.
All right, yeah, bro. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
You're always welcome on my channel, man.
I'm gonna head off to sleep because it is midnight over here on the East Coast of the United States.
Oh, okay.
And I have to get up. Yep.
All right, bro.
Thank you. And I have to get up and drive almost an hour to go to church. So.
All right. Respect to that.
I'm gonna do the same.
I'm a day ahead of you guys, so.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. And my wife is giving me indications, so I too will have to jet.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
I just want to say thank you to Counterdocs. I'd like to get in touch with you over Discord if possible. So I'm hoping Hammer can help.
Yeah, I mean, my email's on my channel. It's in the description. You guys are ready to reach me there.
Counterdocs.
God bless you guys. It's nice chatting.
Okay.
Likewise,
nice
Nicholai. God bless you.
Likewise.
And of course, I'll shoot you an email, Counterdocs. We'll plan something out, dude.
Yeah, you can come over. I'll hand you the icon. All right.
So down.
All right.
We're the icon. What he really means is the drugs that he carves into the back of it.
No, this is he requested.
No, he made that for me. That's so cool. No, I asked him to make me an icon of St. Gregory Palamas, so I'm excited.
Nice. Well,
all right. God bless.
All right,
later, guys.
God bless.
Counter.